Good day, my name is Jason Matthews from Eben Business Solutions. Today I will briefly show you how to compile a business case for an internal capital request in your company. This is how the business case will look at the end. There are a number of sections, however, it is concise and to the point. There is a background, proposed solution, project execution, project economics, justification, financial comments, and finally a place for recommenders and the approver to sign. Let's have a look at our case study. Company A produces product B at a factory. Raw materials are taken through an assembly line consisting of a number of steps or workstations. At workstation 1.3, there is an old equipment called equipment J1. It is seen as a bottleneck in the process. Production volumes have increased by 35% from 2014 to 2016. Business case benefits are built from historical data. Ideally, 2 to 3 years of data provides a good trend analysis. The average cycle time to produce a unit on equipment J1 is 7 minutes. There are 40 working hours a week. In the as-is scenario, it can be seen that production volumes have increased. However, due to the age of equipment J1, the mean time between failures has deteriorated, where a failure occurs every 31 hours or once a week, to now a failure occurring every 16 hours or 2.5 times in a week. The average downtime per breakdown is 2 hours. Thus, with a high number of breakdowns on equipment J1, it has led to high maintenance costs and additional overtime for the staff to make up for downtime when equipment J1 is repaired. The graph illustrates the increased costs to run the aging equipment J1. Thus, a solution is required to ensure profitability of the company. With the current information, we can draft the background. The background consists of 3 subsections. In the first subsection, give an introduction and context to the situation leading to the need of the project. Make sure that the business context within which the request is made is explained. Indicate the business or the customer's requirements that led on to the request. Indicate whether this request is backed up by an approved strategy, policy, procedure, and briefly describe it if necessary. So the first paragraph reads, Company A manufactures product B. This product is used in the production of products X, Y, Z in the market. Volumes in products B have increased by 35% over the past 3 years, and the price of the product is competitive in the market. The second subsection is where you explain what the problem, risk, or opportunity is. The second paragraph reads, However, with an increase in volume, the company's profits margin have been declining due to increased manufacturing costs. During a productivity study, it was identified that equipment J1 in the process was creating a bottleneck. Equipment J1 was 12 years old and incurred frequent breakdowns. The third subsection is where you describe the consequences of this problem, risk or opportunity. You may indicate why the current timing is the most appropriate. The third paragraph. Due to the inefficiencies of equipment J1, on average 5 hours per week of overtime costs is incurred to meet deadlines. Maintenance costs have increased due to constant failures of equipment J1. That's the background. Avoid loose statements, and all statements should be supported by facts. One solution is to replace the old equipment with a new one. Thus, the operating and maintenance costs reduce and slowly increase over time. When we evaluate the benefits of a solution, we follow a decision criteria to identify which benefits to use to motivate the solution. If there are any direct benefits, i.e., once the solution is implemented, the company will experience a reduction in costs. Direct benefits can be proven after implementation of the solution. However, if there are no direct benefits, look at indirect benefits, which are potential risks which can be quantified into financial values with a probability of occurrence. If there are no indirect benefits, look at risks with a risk rating level. Risk ratings quantify medical, safety, and other hazards into a numerical figure. After implementation of the new solution, these risks would be mitigated or eliminated. For this case study, we will use direct benefits to assess the feasibility of the solution. We see that option 1 requires a capital cost of 1.2 million rand and 30,000 rand worth of once-off operational costs. Once-off operational costs include training required to utilize the new equipment. Using project economic calculations, the net present value is 2.16 million rand and the FI is 2.8. The benefits are a reduction in operating and maintenance costs and reduced cycle times. However, the disadvantage is that the new equipment cannot meet existing and future production volumes, and overtime will still be required. However, it is minimal. So, is this a good solution? Let's see how to interpret the project economics. The financial index and net present value have a direct relationship. If the financial index is less than 1, the net present value will be negative. It means that it is not a favorable solution or investment. If the financial index is equal to 1, the net present value will be close to 0. It means that the solution will break even. If the financial index is greater than 1, the net present value will be positive. It means that it is a favorable solution or investment. So option 1 has a FI greater than 1 and the net present value is positive. So it is a favorable solution. Another alternative, option 2, could be to replace the old equipment J1 and purchase an additional J2 equipment to meet the increasing volumes. The future costs will be reduced. We see that option 2 requires a capital cost of 2.4 million and 90,000 rand worth of once-off operational costs. The net present value is 1.24 million rand and the FI is 1.5. The benefits are a reduction in operating costs and maintenance costs, reduced cycle times, and no overtime. However, the disadvantage is that the additional equipment and resources will be underutilized. The option will work well if the production volumes doubled. Thus, option 1 is more favorable than option 2. Although option 2 operating costs appear to be lower than option 1 operating costs, the difference is the upfront capital required to achieve those benefits. Back to the business case. In the proposed solution section, make the proposal that will remedy or positively influence the situation elaborated upon in the background. Be sure to be specific and concise. Indicate what factors and alternatives were also considered and why the specific proposal is the most appropriate. The proposed solution states, it is proposed to replace equipment J1. Another option is to replace equipment J1 and purchase an additional equipment J2 to eliminate overtime. However, this option is not as economically favorable as option 1. Refer to Annexure A for detailed comparison between both options. In the project execution, briefly indicate the scope of work, how the project will be managed, and key project milestones. Acknowledge a sufficient lead time for the procurement process, normally 2 weeks to 2 months depending on the complexity of the project. The project execution states, Company A will coordinate the purchase of the new equipment with support from the procurement and supply department. The following dates are envisaged. Order placement August 2017. Delivery January 2018. Operation February 2018. The project will be executed during the months when production volumes are low. Additional volumes will be produced prior to installation of the new equipment J1. to compensate for the downtime of the project. In the project economics, we can summarize and compare the project economics of both options and conclude which is the preferred option. State the benefits of the preferred option. And summarize. Although both options are directly economically justifiable, option 1 is more favorable than option 2. Option 2 will incur additional employees to manage the additional equipment J2. However, in the future, if production volumes double, option 2 may be the preferred option. In the justification, indicate the primary justification for the project. Indicate the business value and positive outcome on the business or the customer that will result from the proposed solution. Be specific and quantify your statements as far as possible. Indicate any secondary benefits. Avoid vague and broad statements that cannot be substantiated. The justification states, primarily, the replacement of equipment J1 will improve the efficiency of the process by reducing the cycle time by 14%. On average, the overtime hours per week due to downtime of equipment J1 will decrease by 90%. The maintenance cost will decrease by 92%. With the reduced overtime, it creates a positive work-life balance for the employees. In the financial comments, indicate if the amount applied for is provided in a budget and when the capital will flow. The financial comments state, the capital for the proposal is budgeted in 2018. In the request, confirm what needs to be approved and acknowledge the contingency used for the capital amount. The request states, the meeting is requested to approve a capital amount of 1.2 million Rand and an operational expenditure amount of 30,000 Rand for the above mentioned project. The amount requested is based on a budget quote and includes a 5% contingency. In the business case approval section, the parties that recommend the business case needs to sign and the approver approves the business case. The signed off business case is kept with finance as proof that the proper governance was applied and will release the capital funds for the execution of the project. To conclude, the business case may have summarized annexures or appendices, quotations and other reference documents if more information is required. However, the business case is kept concise and professional for executive management to make quick decisions based on facts. I trust this video will bring confidence in the next time you draft a business case for your company. Goodbye.